Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Good. Oh my, hold on. Oh my. There we go. I was using the other microphone. I apologize. Guys, it is Monday the 19th. We've got a bit to talk about here. Good morning, wind bright and early today, huh? By the way, we missed you last week. And sorry about Friday, not really being able around to talk with you guys. All right, let's go into the volume profile, shall we? Well, Friday ended up being a pretty big day. Like, there was a big drop on the open, but here, like, once again, they hold it and they push up to new highs by the end of the day, which is kind of exactly what I said would happen at the end of the day, right? So yeah, and you know, coming in and looking at the different indexes here this morning. Oh, hold on, where is it? It looks like we've got YM leading, NQ and RTY lagging. RTY really lagging, by the way. So when we come over to the treasuries mostly held on Friday, and now we're getting there was a little bit of a lift overnight, but it looks like they're already selling it here. A lot of articles over the weekend about this whole move up and what maybe caused that. And one of the suggestions I've seen that I find really interesting is the suggestion that the economy doing well reduces the possibility of more fiscal stimulus in the future, which means less supply. And so treasuries are actually reacting the opposite to economic to good economic news than they normally would. So this is really incredibly interesting, right? But that's what's going on in the treasuries. Now, when we come over to oil hasn't done a whole lot. Gold, though, gold taking a little bit of a jump. Well, they kind of come back there. The dollar being pretty weak over the weekend. Copper taking a pretty good jump up there. And we'll come over to our treasuries here. I'll make sure that's on. Okay, robots are on. The dollar taking a really, really massive dip overnight. It's kind of interesting that gold is doing what it's doing, but at the moment things look pretty okay for, well, I think that things look really good for gold and silver, but man, they still continue to struggle for whatever reason. But the big news, the thing that everybody's going to be talking about today, Bitcoin down big time over the weekend. Now, granted, this is levels that we were at last week. So at the low, they were down to 5,100. You can't see it on this chart because it happened on the weekend. These are the futures, but they were touching down in here, this 5,100 area. So they did find some support and are bouncing, but it was a 15% drop. And, you know, a lot of talk about like why, and there was actually a couple of things going on over the weekend that people would cite, although I would think that the big one was there was news that there's some regulation coming in, institutions getting hit for not doing enough about fraud. And there was like an instant hit. So what this looks like to me is, you know, Bitcoin is largely speculation. Any kind of scary story comes out and everybody bails, and it's very quick. So a lot of margin positions got taken out. If this had been a serious problem, like say that had come out and it had been substantiated, I think that they could have easily broke below 5,100, and then you're starting to get some cascade effects. But they saved it for now. Still, from my metrics, Bitcoin is still massively overvalued, But my kind of reading of how this has gone in the past kind of suggests to me that they will try and buy this dip and push it to a new high. There has been a lot of retail participation just on this last move with the Dogecoin. Oh my gosh, Dogecoin is ridiculous. Freaking everybody is in on this Dogecoin thing. Now, interestingly enough, Dogecoin not really affected by the weekend drop. So let's come over to Coin Market Cap over here. We'll come in. We'll look at my watch list here. So you can see Bitcoin down massive, but Dogecoin barely even affected, and it looks like they are now at new highs at 40 cents in Dogecoin. So, wow. Also, want to point out, because we've been following the Garlic coin hitting a high of 6 cents over the weekend. There was a big jump. It immediately did the BART and came back down, but then since then, prices moved up. So Garlic coin up 250% overnight. Now I'm wondering, what? So let's come in here. I want to know. First thing I want to do this morning. So how much did Dogecoin go up year to date? Okay. So it was worth 0.007. Oops, that's not the way that I wanted to do it. 0.4 divided by 0.007. So it is up 5,714%. So then Garlic coin year to date started at 0.003. Oh, that was 0.007, 0.003. Oh, man. So could Garlic coin get to 50 cents and beat out Dogecoin's rise? It certainly could. Interesting. Well, anyways, the whole Dogecoin mania thing just looks absolutely insane. I'm kind of like sitting here like, what can put a stop to this? It's just crazy. But and I gotta say, there's definitely some things about the setup coming in today that suggests that we could have some weakness. Okay, I'm not saying that I'm gonna go short, but I'm gonna be keeping an eye on it. There was a lot of gamma that expired on Friday, and we often see declines after the gamma expires. There's also some seasonality in April. Towards the end of the month, we do tend to have a pullback. And a lot of technical indicators are overbought. A lot of Wall Street analysts are starting to say that we're due for a technical pullback. I think there's a really good chance that could start to happen, and it could start to happen today. And the just absolute craziness in Dogecoin kind of suggests to me also that could happen. But when I look at the chart and the way that the market is responding to this pullback and everything, it doesn't appear to me that the Dogecoin enthusiasts are at all deterred. So this could continue. But, darn, they should just go and buy the Garlic coin. Come on. Look at this. The next Dogecoin, guys. Look at this. It's amazing. Huge gains overnight. Well, the thing is like, we really, no way to predict any of these. I tell you what, if Garlic coin ever gets to $1, that's going to be amazing. Pump on Friday, sell on Monday. I mean, that's not exactly what has been happening. The thing that is really interesting, the drop over the weekend, That's another thing is the way that it happened, because um how do we put it, the story that scared everybody was that regulation was coming in, and that sort of a thing, and it was unsubstantiated. So that kind of makes you wonder if somebody was intentionally trying to push things down, right? Um, Otherwise, and you want to do it on the weekend, I think, when there's less liquidity so that you can maximize your impact. Yeah, makes sense. But then why would you do that? How would you make money on it going down other than, like, I don't know, being short, I guess. But the whole thing just kind of makes me think, yeah, or you want to buy more, right? And this has happened before. It's like there will be like the retail rush, and I mean it'll be like a retail rush. I think that this last run here in Dogecoin could be considered the retail rush, but I would like to see it into the larger Bitcoin if we can. And then there's like usually one more after that, one more pump after that, and then it's over. So you gotta wonder. You've gotta wonder. So, but that's where we're at right now. Oh, yes, let's make sure that our text to speech is up here. Biden officials doing media day today to amplify the message that all in U.S. ages 16 plus now are eligible for the COVID vaccine at every site in every state. Okay. Well, if you want the vaccine, you better go get it. Actually, almost everybody that I know now is getting it. I've already had the disease. Yeah. There's all sorts of wild political things that happened over the weekend that we can talk about, but I don't know if they're super important right now. I don't know. Ray Dalio world is underweighted in China assets. Yes, Ray, we get it, says Zero Hedge. Stock market leverage in La La Land rises to historic WTF high, says Zero Hedge. This bubble is now at least 2 times the .com bubble. It's crazy. Not so sure this is all sustainable, but ain't nobody gonna come in and sell it, right? All right, well, I have a little bit of food, so I'm gonna eat that. It was too warm for me to eat before stream, so can you eat this oatmeal really quick? And yeah. I feel like there's something else I should be looking at, but I can't recall what it is. I have to say that move down in the treasury looks pretty impressive, but hasn't moved a whole lot since the open. I'm gonna keep an eye out over here. Volume's still really, really light. Good morning, Keller. How are you? Keller says his phone froze up last night and he had to watch the Dodge rally happen without him. Well, that one kind of sucks. I was going to say, you should never feel bad about, getting out too early, especially in cryptocurrencies. Remember that with the way that cryptocurrencies work, to really make your money, you basically have to get out early. Because you won't have the liquidity that you need when it's on the way down, right? But no, don't be mad about that. Be mad if you don't follow your plan. Like if there's a trade that was a part of your plan and you didn't take it, then it's okay to be mad at yourself, right? This time, yeah, you couldn't get on your phone. Yeah. Oh wow. Oh wow. AKA musical chairs. It really is. I mean, like, honestly, there's nothing to this thing at this point other than speculation. It really comes down to that. Your phone was literally frozen. Well, you better clear it up. Yeah. I am like long overdue for a new phone. It's I really like this one. It was what, the S10 or whatever. It's the one where they cut the sides of it are kind of curved a little bit, and it's got a really, you can see right there, it's got a really bad crack in it. Not enough to really bother me though. I should be buying a new glass screen, but I just haven't bothered. But it's been paid off for well over a year. So I could buy a new one, but none of the phones that are like up and coming really seem all that amazing to me, Maybe I should be doing it before like supply constraints come in and phones become crazy expensive or something. Overdue for a new MacBook. Kind of random. Well, that one was not a cheap phone. Killer says I go for the cheap phone. That one was not cheap when it came out, man. I kind of am thinking, though, like maybe I get one of those fold-out screen ones. Kyle asks what the title is. Oh, I never changed it. I changed it from, it's not the 17th, it's the 19th. We should say Weekend Crypto Massacre. And then all of the cryptocurrency people are going to see it. Watch. We're going to put that in our title. And all the crypto guys are going to come in and they're going to be like, it's just a pullback. Buy the dip. Buy the dip. That's what they're going to do. And I'm going to be like, guys, did you miss out on the dot? Wait. Guys, did you miss out on this recent rise in Dogecoin? I mean, this is insane. How can you miss a move like that? Well, let me tell you what. Here is the next big one, okay? The next meme coin, garlic coin, okay? This thing, it was even lower than Dogecoin, 0.3 of a cent, and now it is at 4 cents, guys. Big rise over the weekend. This is taking off. Look at this. Look at this chart, guys. Look at this chart, guys. This thing is going to the moon. And yeah, there is less supply in Scarlet Coin than there is in Dogecoin. Okay, Dogecoin has like 10,000 new coins created. Okay, Scarlet Coin only has 69 million coins ever, and most of them are already mined out, guys. So, Scarlet Coin, this thing could be worth 1,000. Okay, like Dogecoin, it goes up big time. Maybe they get to $1. Okay, that would be crazy if they got to $1. Maybe they get to $1. Okay. Scarlet Coin, this thing is gonna be like 1,010. There's no limit, guys. Well, wait. Steve giving good. No, Steve always primarily looks for himself. That's no. Jacob Hollow asks, "Will you share your strategy, Guru Man, for low price?" Jacob, here's what you want to do. Okay, the thing that you want to go and buy, you go and find it and put as much money into it as possible, as quickly as possible. You don't want to miss the move. Just FOMO into everything. Just FOMO into everything, guys. That's my strategy. Post your games. I think that's enough of that. I think for his so if you enjoyed this Steve thing, we have a TikTok account at Real Stock Market Steve, where it's nothing but that stuff. I think today Steve is going to try and sell people a bridge, so that should be fun. Oh yeah, remember, stay poor. No, remember, don't be poor. Don't be poor. Stay poor. Oh man. You joke, but FOMO and everything has been working. I know, right? It's like but my rules for how Steve behaves, it goes like this. Steve always primarily looks to inflate his own ego and help himself. And then after that, he will always give you bad advice. So that means that he will do whatever it takes to get like the most attention on social media. But that all of his advice is bad. But the thing that's going to be funny about it is that he's going to be right a lot of the time. And if you were to actually go in and do like an analysis of it, you will find that he gets really good moves. So there's enough that if you were following him and you thought it was real, that you would think that he was a good guru. And it just kind of shows how people get suckered in by fake gurus, right? Well, E-mini's still incredibly dead here. We're getting maybe 100 lots every 30 seconds. If that. Maybe the top of the hour, they get some people coming in and they try and make a move for it. So yeah, a stay board would be the true statement if you were to follow Steve's advice, right? Well, the play. Oh, hold on a second. The origin of that. Oh my gosh, I was too loud there. I'm sorry. The origin of that was that the crypto, the Bitcoin maximalists, whenever you smash on Bitcoin, their response is enjoy staying poor. Well, have fun being poor. Have fun being poor, fiat earther. Oh, NASA launches tiny helicopter on historic Mars flight. That's cool. Yeah, I keep a list. If you got stuff for me, like send it to me on Discord. You know what I really need is I need to hire a comedy writer. If you know a good comedy writer that knows a lot about markets, wants to go in on stock market Steve with me for a percentage of the the gains, send them my way. So it's hard to come up with a lot of ideas. Crude making a run for it. Well, the E-mini's making a little bit of a run there. It was an okay move. U.S. suffers third mass shooting in 24 hours as 5 wounded in Louisiana. You know, I do have to say, I find it awfully suspicious. So many shootings. It just seems like really out of the nowhere. Especially since a lot of these places are still shut down. It's kind of weird. Fauci on mask usage. Vaccinated people can still inadvertently affect others. How? Where's the science in? Okay, you have to explain that one to me. I don't get how you say that. Look, if the vaccine doesn't make it so that we don't have to wear those stupid masks, then what's the freaking point? I don't understand. Anthony Fauci warned Sunday that vaccinated Americans could still be infected with COVID-19 and pass the virus on to others inadvertently, thereby necessitating mask usage until more Americans receive the vaccine or the level of confirmed infections significantly drops. Speaking with NBC's Chuck Todd on Meet the Press, Fauci explained that receiving the vaccine dramatically diminishes a person's risk of carrying an infection, but does not eliminate it, adding that vaccinated Americans could experience asymptomatic infections. What happens is that you might get infected and absolutely no symptoms, not know you're infected, and then inadvertently go off into a situation with vulnerable people. And if you don't have a mask, you might inadvertently affect them, he said, adding that there was a quote-unquote small risk of such a situation occurring. Yeah, it's, you know what the percentage of like reinfection is if you've had the vaccine? It's like 0.03%. It's like this ridiculously small number. It's like they have like 3 cases of somebody getting reinfected after the vaccine. Something like that. Center for Disease Control Prevention guidelines currently recommend that the vaccinated Americans continue wearing masks in public, though the agency says that vaccinated people congregating exclusively with others who have received the vaccine can do so safely without a mask. Attending medium or large gatherings with or without a mask is also still not recommended. We're still learning how vaccines will affect the spread of COVID-19. After you've been fully vaccinated against COVID-19, you should keep taking precautions like wearing a mask, staying 6 feet apart from others, and avoiding crowds and poorly ventilated spaces in public places until we know more, the CDC said in guidelines. And that's the story from The Hill. 3 masks needed. No, okay, listen, I have to defend the 2 mask thing, okay? Fauci saying you need to have 2 masks. The CDC guidelines always said that it should be 2 layers of cloth. And they also recommended certain types of cloth over others. And I think that they preferred cotton. Okay? That was always the guideline. And so when they just came out and kind of like made the guideline like, you know, pointed out to everybody, oh, like the guideline was this and this. So they turned it into 2 masks. I think that that was deceptive. It was always that you were supposed to have 2 layers of cloth in the mask. That was always the thing. Because I know this because my wife, she made masks from the beginning. Like I told her the week that it happened, like it sounds like they're talking about making masks, and that's something that you could do. So she started making them, and she was making tons of masks. She made several thousands of dollars. And like honestly, when you think about a mask is only like $7 or something, yeah, okay. She sold a lot of masks, and from the very beginning, they were always 2 layers. Well, here in Utah, you don't have to wear the mask anymore. Although, pretty much every store that I've seen, they still require you to wear it. So it's just like, ugh. Ugh. Here's the thing. If I could be as bold as to say, I think that the reality of what's going on here is really clear. Okay, Dr. Fauci wants it, if he could have his way, would have you wear masks for the rest of your life, regardless of whether or not there was a real threat, because he believes that it would reduce infections. Like all of these things, he's like, oh yeah, think about how many people would not die of the flu every year. Think about how many people would not die of X and Y. You know, like from their perspective, they've always been looking at this for years and been saying, you know, if people behave differently in public, we would save thousands of. He wants you to wear the mask forever. Like, I, it just seems so blatantly obvious that that's the case here. Of course, that's not what's going to happen, but that's why I don't really trust Fauci on a lot of the things that you say. Although I do still believe that wearing the masks and mandating it wasn't like a terrible decision. There's still, I'd say the jury is still out on whether or not it's effective. I'd say the jury is still out on whether or not it's effective. And I have to wonder, like, why are these some states that it's like practically over in it, and there's other states where it's just awful? Because it seems like that the states where it's just awful right now were like the strictest ones. Like Michigan, probably one of the most strict, right? What's with that? Explain that one to me. Or Canada. Man, what is going on in Ontario? Explain that. I Nobody can explain that to me. The most strict restrictions I've seen yet in Ontario here, well over a year after it all started. How is this happening? And here in my area, it's like, it's fine, it's over. I don't get it. Well, we're getting a good little trickle here of orders coming through, and the Treasury's pushing them down yet again. Masks are the least people could do. It's easy, but people want to cry babies and cry freedom. That's not freedom. No. So I don't think that that's the case with the masks. Like with the mask, I would agree with you. Like it's a small little thing. The CDC is recommending it. I think the reason that the masks gets so much focus, other than just they're really annoying to wear, is that what to a lot of us, at least. I'm not gonna say that this is objectively the truth, but to a lot of us, it seems like that a lot of what the experts are saying contradicts the science, or they change their minds on things, right? So with the masks in particular, there was a whole thing that they said like, oh no, don't get masks, they don't help. And then all of the sudden, oh, full on doubling down on the mask thing. That, especially to your basic person that's, doesn't really follow the news for a whole lot. That is like really hard evidence that they're just trying to manipulate you, right? To me, I think the place where the freedoms, quote unquote, come in is like shutting businesses down and all of that stuff. Like I still believe, I do not believe rather, that a state has the ability to come in and shut down a small business for months at a time. I just don't believe that they can do that. And what they're doing in Ontario is not constitutional. It shouldn't happen here in the United States. That the police can literally pull over anybody and fine them if they're out and not on essential activity. Absolutely ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. And I think that people should be worried about their freedoms, because if they can force everybody to stay in their homes in complete lockdown, then you have given government complete power. They can do whatever they want. And you really expect me to believe that somebody in the government isn't going to try and abuse that power at some point? No. That's a situation where, maybe more people will die because you can go to the store without being stopped by police, but that is a necessary freedom that we have to take. I disagree. It's no different than needing a license to practice. I need a license to live now? Like what? Come on. I don't see how anybody can look at it like, and I'm going to pick on Ontario, right? I don't see how anybody can say that what is going on in Ontario right now is not a massive threat to people's freedoms. You can't go outside of the house without the police stopping you. That's insane. It's so insane. The police have been saying that they're not going to enforce it. Come on. And I don't know, like, man. And the other thing is that I really question how effective such a lockdown will be. My reading of the evidence is that a lockdown of the nature that Ontario is doing is, for like long periods of time is not a good idea. No, it's not when there's a deadly. I don't care how many people die. Dude, listen, when it comes to me and my family and our freedoms and our safety, I would let 1 million people die to protect my family. I straight up don't care. It's not an effective argument to me. It's not. It's simply comes down to being moral enough to care that people are dying in mass numbers. Okay. And then when the government turns around and uses those same powers to come in and like completely genocide an entire group of people in the United States, and then are you going to come back and say, well, it was the moral thing to do? Give me a break. Guys, there are limitations to this. And what you're doing is you're placing one little thing, which is the lives of old people that were probably going to die in the next few years anyways, above everything else in your society. That is stupid. Calm down, guys. I'm totally willing to get into it on this today. I feel like, I don't know. I want to talk about it. I think it's a real discussion that should be had. And that I think people have been shutting down. There has to be a limit. There are certain freedoms that you cannot give up. Because if you give them up, then you've given up everything and they can do anything. Like, honestly, if the government can come in and shut your business down for months at a time and tell you that you can't even go out, you don't have freedom of movement, and the cops can stop you at any time, Why is that even an amendment anymore? Why even have constitutional rights anymore? Because they can just come in and say forever after now, oh, well, there's a new variant of the coronavirus, you have to stay in. Like, you're giving people a power that is so easy to abuse, that what you're giving up in that freedom and the potential for abuse in it far outweighs any lives that you're saving today. It far outweighs it. Okay? Because you're giving the government power that they could use to go and murder half of the population if they wanted. I mean, that's the kind of power that you're giving them. This is like Nazi Germany shit. Seriously. On your policy where people can claim freedom to do what the most dangerous things you are. No. Individuals have freedom. The government doesn't, right? Remember, so this is a big point, actually. Remember the whole thing about Joe Biden when he was talking about gun control and all of that. He was like, none of these are absolute or anything. Here's the thing, okay? The Constitution does not give me the right to bear arms. Let me say that again. The Constitution does not give you the right to bear arms, okay? God gives you the right to bear arms. Rights are God-given, and the Constitution only prevents the government from infringing on those rights, okay? You can limit the government, not individuals, right? Can a court clerk deny a marriage to a gay person? So I don't understand why that one was ever a big deal, because there should be enough redundancy that if one person doesn't want to do it, that there should be somebody in the area that would. That whole thing was dumb, I think. American rights are God-given rights. So look, that's what the Constitution was based off of, man. Rights don't come from the government. It's not just about you. No, actually it is, Color. It is just about me. I don't think you understand the Constitution, my friend. The entire basis of the United States is that as they came in and they said, to hell with what the government says about what the greater good is. Individuals have rights that you cannot infringe upon under any circumstances. That's why they're constitutional. That's why it's a constitution, so that the government cannot violate those rights. And so it doesn't matter what kind of harm it does to society at large or what kind of harm it does to you individually, those rights cannot be infringed under any circumstances. That's what the Constitution says. Okay? How do we take this? Not always perfect, but pretty darn. Individual rights, baby. USA was built on man being considered an individual, not collective. Yep, exactly. Let's take it this way. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So to come out and say that you can't go to church on Sunday, it's not constitutional. The First Amendment straight up says, listen, they never came in and said, okay, but if there is a pandemic, all of this stuff goes out the window. You realize that at the time that the Constitution was created, that there were diseases floating around and that there had been pandemics that were, equal to or just, worse than what is going on now, right? There was entire groups of people in the United States that were just completely wiped out by a disease. Smallpox was still a thing, okay? And they never put anything into the Constitution that said, like, okay, except for if there's a pandemic, then they're allowed to lock you in the house. That it wasn't in there. Why? Because to them, these rights were absolute. It's like I don't know. I think you should try and change your argument from a different direction, because the problem with your argument is that it doesn't matter how strongly you believe it. That will never pass muster at the Supreme Court, and it's never going to happen in the United States. They already tried to do it, like in California. They came in and they said that you can't have a private church meeting at home, and even though they were allowing all of these other businesses to be open. And so the Supreme Court shot that down. It's already been proven at the Supreme Court. The problem with your argument is that you're going to destroy the planet. Yes, I would rather destroy the planet than give up my individual freedoms. Yes, that's 100% it. Do you not understand? There is literally nothing. I would rather die. I would rather die than give up my God-given constitutional rights. They are absolute. This idea that no constitutional right is absolute, that is exactly wrong, Mr. Biden. That is, the whole Constitution was written to protect those freedoms so that they can never be infringed. It's patently insane it's not. That's America. Well, the E-mini tried to start a little bit of a run there, but it just came back really quickly, so. We just do not have enough volume to make a trade. We could have taken a short in the treasury and made a tick, I guess, but or no. So it's getting a little bit thick over here, by the way. 4Ks now. Magic Men in the Clouds isn't it? But that's what the country was founded on. You say it's bad ideas, but it's those ideas that have led America to be the most successful and most free country in the world. The most successful and free country in the world. Oh, don't argue with him. Don't have to make it personal, meme finance. It ruins all the fun if you start to make it personal. John Adams explicitly wrote in the Treaty of Trip that it is not founded as a Christian nation. Okay, well, so if you're going to say that they're not God given right, that they call them, like, what is it? What is the word that they use in the Constitution? Inalienable rights is a right that can't be restrained or repealed by human laws. Sometimes called natural rights, inalienable rights flow from our nature as a free people. Right? So the either way, the message here is this, that the government doesn't give you rights. Right? The government cannot infringe upon rights. See, calling people a clown, that's not necessary. It's just hateful insanity. My government gives me rights, feels bad, man. Right? That's the way it works in Brazil, huh? Oh, man. This is where I get, like, this is the thing that always drives me nuts the most about the liberal perspective, is that they don't really believe in the Constitution. They don't really believe in the founding principles and founding documents of this nation, really, at all. They only use them as a vehicle of convenience. That when the Constitution is favorable to them, they'll use it to try and convince you, oh, you believe in the Constitution, so then surely you believe X thing. But then when it's not in favor of what they want, they just come, they just want to, like, why even have a Constitution at that point? You get what I mean? Like, you understand, like, why there has to be a Constitution, right? There has to be a document to come in and say, these are the things that absolutely cannot happen and absolutely must happen, that the government has to follow, because otherwise the government can just come in and do whatever it wants. So if we come in and we say, well, these things are, harmful, or we say no constitutional right is absolute, right? Then you're essentially, eliminating the reason to have a constitution in the first place. Do you see? So, if that's the way that you want things to be, then go and live in a country where there's not a constitution and where the government can do whatever they think is in the best interests of the population at large. But that's not the United States, and it never will be. Because blindly adhering to one half of a contradictory old book while millions of people have died is inappropriate for this situation. Okay, so you don't believe in the Constitution. Got it. Got it. Well, that's your opinion, but I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the Constitution. I believe that rights are inalienable rights. I do believe that rights come from a all-powerful being in the sky. 100%. And I'm willing to accept any negative consequences that has. Not me in finance. If anybody's going to get banned here, it's going to be you. So I would shut up and stop saying shit like that. Is it relevant? No. What is constitutional is completely relevant to the situation at hand. You understand, there are so many things. Like, listen, if we were to come in and use that somebody could die as the end-all, be-all argument for everything, then you wouldn't be allowed to do anything, right? Well, somebody could die. You can't drive anymore. Somebody could die, or somebody could lose money, so you can't trade anymore. Well, we think that it's harmful for society at large, religion, so you can't have religion anymore. You see? It's not what a Nazi would say. It's what a patriot, freedom-loving, constitution-loving patriot would say. So you have no problem with drunk drivers? Well, driving drunk is against the law. And there's no constitutional right to protect driving drunk. That's a straw man argument, right? You're trying to compare something that is not constitutionally protected and is frankly stupid, and I don't think that anybody would disagree with, to something that is constitutionally protected. That's a straw man argument. This doesn't contradict your position. Where in the Constitution does it say the right of people to drive cars shall not be infringed? Where does it say that? Maybe somebody can go and make an amendment and put that in there. So I think business should have a max load. Well, so I think where it kind of ends up mattering is like that's why I specifically selected the example of people going to church on Sunday, right? Because that is the First Amendment, right? People are having, because of the pandemic, people are having their First Amendment rights trampled on. Well, these treasuries are coming back so aggressively. They are erasing almost all of Thursday's move. And Thursday was a crazy move. Now, they're back into an area where there was some balance before that, so they might slow down here. Let's see what they do. There's a little bit lack of liquidity at 0.2.5. I haven't really seen an opportunity for me to do my one ticker in here, so. If going to church created a pandemic, then I don't care about your church or your religious beliefs. Right. And so, Keller, that is exactly why we people that believe in religion made sure that there was a constitution. Because we knew that at some point somebody would come along and come up with some excuse for why we shouldn't be able to worship. And so we made it constitutionally protected so that under no circumstances could that right be infringed upon. See, you are the case study here. The exact reason why we have a constitution. To prevent people like you from taking away our God-given inalienable rights. You think they're going to take 0.1/2? Seem awfully reluctant to do that, although I do see some orders going into it. Why would restricting the max number of people at a business would then? Okay, so this is a good question. Well, for that matter though, where is it say that they cannot restrict you from being able to go out and have go outside for whatever reason you want? And I'm not sure where that constitutional argument is. That's why I kind of skipped over that one. religious freedom. Well, you can't commit murder. If you don't care about other people, I think that the Constitution trumps other people, yeah. What is good for society as a whole is trumped by the individual rights enshrined in the Constitution. And if you don't believe that, you shouldn't live in America. Like, straight up. Because that's the founding principle of the United States of America, right? If you don't believe that, like, you should go live in Germany. It sounds like you should just go live in Germany. I think that matches up more ideologically with you. No. The Constitution says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of people to peaceably assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances. So, ergo, the government saying that you can't come out of your house to go to church or to have a protest. I'm saying that constitutionally the government can't do that. And constitutionally, the government certainly cannot come in and say, well, religion, you can't go to church, but you can go to the grocery store. Or you can't go to church, but you can go to a Black Lives Matters protest. The government certainly can't do that. Mm-hmm. Oh, here you go. Here's another one. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So having having a lockdown that prevents people from being able to leave their homes and being questioned by the police if they do leave their homes, I think is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. There you go. IBM manager says Bitcoin is going to fall to 1,600. Well, if you missed the beginning thing on, you can go back and watch the beginning of the stream, but I was saying that I believe that this is probably a pullback and that the Bitcoiners are going to try and push it back up. And I think that you will see that really quick too. I don't think that it'll be down here for very long, but Bitcoin is very overvalued, and I don't think that they could probably sustain another big rush and then crash like that. I agree that the picking and choosing of what can and cannot be done has been extremely, but that's why I was saying that, like, being able to the freedom of assembly, that's explicitly protected, right? The right to kill somebody. So the Constitution does not say that anything that you want to do that's a part of your religion you're allowed to do. It doesn't say that. It says they can make no law prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging freedom of speech or of the press. So specifically when we're talking about freedom of speech, the right of the people to peaceably assemble, they cannot stop you from peaceably assembling. If you and all your buddies want to go outside and protest against lockdowns, then that is a constitutionally protected freedom of speech that cannot be infringed. Is the bars type with greenish background beside you included in your indicator suite? Green it. Are you talking about this thing right here? Sorry, somebody has a real trading question. Hold on. You have real trading questions. I guess we can talk about that. I like to talk about the Constitution. Are you talking about this thing right here? Yes, that is part of Jigsaw Day Trader. It's the Jigsaw Day Trader Vista charts. Now, NinjaTrader 8 has a similar feature. Sierra Charts has a similar feature, although those two I don't think are even half as good. And then Bookmap has a similar feature. Bookmaps, I would say, is better than Jigsaw's, but this is also a feature that I don't really think is all that important. I kind of have it up. So the main reason that I have it up is to watch cumulative delta. So I like the way that cumulative delta looks on that chart. Does freedom of assembly mean that pedophiles can run child sex trafficking rings as long as they call it a religion? Well, so hold up, Keller. Do you understand what freedom of assembly is? How do you get from freedom of assembly to pedophilia? Like, Evel Knievel could not have made that jump, man. That is not your, yeah. We're talking about a specific right, which is freedom of assembly. What is freedom of assembly? That is that you are free to go outside and get together and protest about something, right? Okay, that's the very, very narrow thing that is protected in the Constitution. So all of this other stuff that you say, well, can you do this? Can you break this law and break this law and then say, well, that's my freedom of religion? No, you can't. And the Supreme Court has affirmed that multiple times. You cannot come in and say it is my religion to murder people, and so I should be allowed to murder people. Of course not. Okay, but it is a constitutionally protected right to peaceably assemble. Going to church isn't a protest, but it is a peaceable assembly. Yeah, I would say going to a protest is peaceable assembly. Going to church is a peaceable assembly. Going to somebody else's house and having dinner with them is peaceable assembly. It's not peaceful when it gets people killed. You should try that argument on the Supreme Court. I don't think that one would hold up. I'm not quite sure how I would argue that one. How would you see meme finance? Look, he actually came up with a reasonable defense now after flailing around for a little bit. So now he's saying that because it is harmful to other people by spreading the disease, that it's not peaceable assembly. But it's an argument. So I would now think that we would have to go and look at some court cases, right? Because the question would be, okay, so I think that you can argue that it would be harmful to certain people potentially. So now there's kind of this question of what is the legal standard at which something is harmful enough to other people to restrict their freedom of assembly, right? But in the specific cases that we're talking about in the United States, they were allowing peaceable assembly at the grocery store or like protests, but they weren't allowing peaceable assembly of churches. Okay, so if it's not harmful enough to stop peaceable assembly of Black Lives Matters, then you cannot stop the peaceable assembly of people at church, right? Republicans made a project of taking over the Supreme Court and not even trying to maintain balance. Well, that's not really the case. Look, it's always been the Supreme Court has always had some degree of politics involved with it. I would really argue that it was the Democrats that started that one back in the 70s. Well, maybe even before the 70s when, with FDR, there was kind of, I think, when it really started to get politicized. And that's the way that the process works. And if the Supreme Court comes in and was to make a decision that I didn't like, the Constitution, the way the system works is that they're the voice. Yeah, I understand, like, if you believe in the Constitution, then you've got to go with what the Constitution says, even when it's not what you want. Do you see what I mean? You can't come in and say, well, I only like the Constitution when it says what I want it to, right? We either believe in the Constitution and as the founding document of our nation, or we don't. And if you don't, then this isn't the country for you, because we live in a constitutional republic. But the Constitution says that there is a Supreme Court, and that those Supreme Court justices are appointed by the president with confirmation by the Senate. And so if you're able to get a Supreme Court nominee through, then they're on the Supreme Court. End of story. And the legal decisions that they make are constitutionally binding. They only allowed peaceable assembly was the day that people were celebrating Biden, right? It's just, you can't pick and choose. It's for sure. I tell you what, the Supreme Court has made a couple of decisions lately that I was kind of like, no. But I'm really glad that one they upheld. It's scary and startling to me that was only a 5-4 decision. That was a 5-4 decision. But it was the right decision. You can't come in and say that Black Lives Matters can protest, but church can't. I mean, it got so ridiculous that some churches were saying, no, we're not having church, we're having a Black Lives Matters protest. Do you remember that? They had seats separated at the inauguration. Well, if that is kind of a crazy argument, Keller, right? So just because the government set up an event and they enforced certain restrictions at the event, that's like you can have a private event, okay? But what they can't do is they can't prevent you and your friends from going down to a public place and getting together and having a protest. They literally can't. It's constitutionally protected. Because they're selfish and don't care about anything other than getting... No, that's not true. It's because, again, we live in a constitutional republic. So, if the thing that I wanted to have was unconstitutional, then I don't get to have it. Okay, for instance, I would love it if all people were required to give me all of their cookies. Okay, anybody that has a cookie they have to give it to me. That would be unconstitutional, right? Because you have right to property, and the government cannot take your property away um, without equal compensation, right? There you go. So yeah, there are some things that maybe I would want that aren't constitutional, and so you just don't get them. Well, what do you think about the e-minis so far? So they did push up. So we kind of had like a decline before the open, and then going into the open, they bought it again. I'd say it's pretty lackluster here on the open. Not really getting a very good spot for the treasury either. 9107. Well, I mean, the dollar did kind of bounce back here, but we got to remember that the dollar's super weak today because it was only a few days ago that we were at 92, right? Yeah, did you hear about Eurex launching micros on DAX and Euro stocks? So I don't get Eurex data. So for me, it doesn't really matter. But it sounds like from the Europeans that having micro futures is going to be incredibly beneficial. I'm not saying they should go in with dogs and tasers, but what they should have told people that pandemic takes some kind of global health prevention over our usual politics. Well, yeah, you can go. You can tell people that hey, you shouldn't be doing this because it's bad for people, but the government legally can't prevent freedom of assembly. So if there was a government mandate to have the police come out and play over the protests a message stating that the pandemic is really dangerous and that you guys should go home to prevent the spread of infection, then that would be perfectly okay, yes. But if the police came in and they said, you're not allowed to have this protest because of this government law, that government law that doesn't allow you to have the protest is not constitutional. So quite a bit of volume trading there at 69. Kind of keeping my eye on this treasury because I'm kind of hoping that I get an opportunity over there to take out the one tick, but I don't know. I prefer DAX and stocks to ES because they open at 3 a.m. Eastern time and they have more time to digest the moves. So great with risk on moves worldwide. ES just opens so choppy sometimes and that you can't. Well, so that's an interesting thing. I mean, the volume that you get on the open in the ES is a big advantage, right? That's how I'm able to pull out some of the little scalps that I get. The open actually ends up being one of the best times of day to trade. But I think the reason why a lot of people get scared of the open is because their technical setups don't work very well over the open. But I think that the reality is that their technical setups don't work very well anyways, and it's just that because you get so much movement in the ES, it just really stands out to you when you do that, right? Yes, it's just so great for scalpers, but I'm a trend follower, so it just ruins my arm. I don't know. Did you get the argument that I was kind of making there though? Like my argument is that The big argument, the great argument, the great debate, the truly great debate, because what is constitutional and not is, I like to talk, let me tell you something. I like to talk about the Constitution and what is constitutional and not constitutional, and why we should not give up our rights, and why rights are God-given. I like to talk about that because I believe it wholeheartedly, and I think it's important that people understand. When I look at what are the most important things that I can impart to my children and teach them about, that is one of the things at the top of that list. You know what I mean? Okay, and so here, me having a public platform and a stream, then talking about what is constitutional rights and why we have a constitution. If I get a chance to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it. That's my duty as a believer in a constitution. Okay, but this is also kind of some, there's things that like aren't debatable, like what's constitutional and what's not constitutional. That's been before the Supreme Court, and like we can kind of talk about it, and so. Like, it's more like explaining the way things are rather than it is a debate, right? But if we're going to have a debate, a true debate, what is the real debate? Does technical analysis work? Or rather, how effective is technical analysis? I think that that's a more fair question, because you could say, well, it works sometimes, right? So we have to have a more specific question to debate over. So the real question is, how effective is technical analysis? And my assertion is not very. My assertion is not very. And I say not very because I say it is not very effective compared to other forms of analysis. It is not very effective compared to fundamental analysis. It's not very effective compared to breaking news, which is really fundamental analysis, right? It's not very effective compared to looking at how an asset is valued and trading off of that asset based on that, right? So that's my argument. So the supporting evidence that I was trying to use there was that price movements on the open are incredibly random. And so when you're trading a technical strategy, a lot of technical traders avoid the open because their technical systems aren't able to predict what will happen at the open. But what I'm saying is, I think that their technical strategies aren't able to predict the future direction and magnitude of price moves much at all anyways. And it's just that there's more opportunities, there's more trades around the open. You end up taking more trades, and so because you get more trades in a short time frame, the longer term expectancy of that technical setup is more obvious to you. Whereas when you just take like one trade a day, and then you're able to just only remember the ones that work. Whereas if you take like 10 trades in a row within a 30-minute period and 7 of them don't work, then it's really obvious to you that the strategy doesn't have any efficacy. Right? It's a mind over matter, so if one doesn't have a mind, the rest doesn't matter. So same with me. That's why I have a discussion, because we have a bit of friendship here, and way likewise I feel like a lot of stuff is too important to not. Well, the difference is that my way of thinking is the basis of the country. That's the that's the issue I have. Like the only way that changes is if Seth is dead, right? Because we're a constitutional republic. And if we're no longer a constitutional republic, then I'm not going to be living anymore. Damn commies are going to have to kill me first. You just think it is? No, it's like we are a constitutional republic. You see? That I think is undisputable. Okay, so there's some highs. Do you think they're going to take off here? Well, the treasuries are kind of pulling back here a little bit. I might be able to grab one here if I'm lucky. I've been thinking over here on my charts window, I've got like all of the treasuries down on the bottom, but I'm starting to think that maybe I don't actually need all of those. I could just have them in a tabbed thing, and then I'd be able to fit more stuff on here. But then it's like, what would I put there? I don't know. I could move this chart over there. There's another one. Is this chart? So I don't think that you on this chart. When I say this chart, I mean this one right here. I think that you guys would be disappointed if I got rid of that chart, because I think everybody loves that chart. It's just so cool looking. Everybody comes in there like, wow, that's really sophisticated. I've never seen anything like that before. So I don't know if I can get rid of that one. But I don't think I really use it anymore. Okay, yields are currently trading back above the 1.6 level on the 10-year. Yeah, they ticked up. They didn't let me get it. See how I was like, if they give it to me, maybe. Oh, the assertion that the Constitution says I can gather and spread diseases by some appeal to a kind of freedom that is so anti-scientific and unpatriotic so as to not care. Well, it is, but it is, though. I mean, it's been upheld by the Supreme Court, right? So according to the Constitution, you're wrong. So that's my favorite argument on that, right? Because the thing is like, the Supreme Court has the final say, really, right? Because the Supreme Court is the body in charge of determining what it is and isn't constitutional. And so if they look at a specific situation, and the specific situation that we're talking about here is in California where they weren't allowing people to assemble to worship, then they ruled on that. But I kind of one of the reasons why I like that argument is because I think it kind of exposes the idea that a lot of liberals don't really believe in a constitution. They just believe in whatever is convenient for what they believe at that moment. And I think that comes down to, somebody was saying it earlier, that liberals and conservatives have different values. Liberals like really value fairness, whereas Republicans don't really care about fairness at all. But then Republicans, they still think that things should try to be fair. It's not like they don't have fairness, but then they also have these other things like whether something is sacred and loyalty, for instance, that Democrats don't have, right? And so there is a perfect example of it, is that to a Republican, we are loyal to the Constitution. A Democrat doesn't feel the responsibility to say that. So they'll come in and argue in favor of the Constitution on one hand, but then when it's not, doesn't say what they want, they just completely ignore it. Right? I would argue, though, that loyalty is a value that we should have. The Republicans are the one who believe whatever is convenient to them in the moment. Well, I'm going along with what the Supreme Court says in this case. Supreme Court says that the state of California cannot restrict the freedom of assembly to practice religion, but while on the other hand not restricting the freedom of protesters to peacefully assemble. Well, so they kind of looked like they were going to go and make a new high. They didn't do it. They've touched it 3 times now. Unusual, wouldn't you say? Not sure that I could just take a short off of that. Maybe if they came back down a little bit. Sprinkler or rolled in evolutionary trials ever since. Well, no. So you're making a different argument, right? The different argument is that, like, okay, so if I believe that evolution is wrong, then that means that the government can't teach it. That's not a correct application of the Constitution. The the specific application of the Constitution that we're talking about here is the right of people to peaceably assemble and preventing the exercise of religion, which I believe in the First Amendment case is talking about, like, your ability to freely believe a thing without negative consequences. Right? That's what that really gets. That's what that's really getting at, right? Is you can believe in God. It can't be illegal to believe in God. It can't be illegal to believe that the Constitution um, is divinely inspired. It can't be against the law to believe that rights come from God, right? But it can be. You can legislate actions if those actions aren't explicitly protected by the Constitution, right? So you can legislate that you can't commit murder. Yeah, that sucks that came back, but the 30-year is not following them. Because what about all the religious teachers that want to teach religion? Well, so I think that you can come in and you can say, well, so this is where this is kind of a controversial thing, but I don't think that you can prevent a teacher from expressing their opinion in class. I don't think that that's ever really been tested, though. But this is the one where it's, can you ban the school from having in-school prayer, for instance? This is the edge case, right? And I'm going to say I don't think that you should necessarily have prayer at school, but if they want to do it, I don't think that you can prevent it. As long as it's never a mandatory thing, right? Like you can't say we're going to have a prayer and that the class is forced to participate. That's not legal. And certainly I think they've also established if the students decide that they want to have a prayer, then they can have a prayer, right? But there was a whole way back in the 90s or 2000s, early 2000s, there was a whole thing about all of that, about prayer in school. What about all the religious teachers that want to teach religion? Well, I don't think that, so you can't come in and say that the curriculum has to have religious teaching in it. I think that if the people in that area decided that they wanted to include that in the curriculum, they'd be allowed to, right? But that has no application to the explicitly constitutionally protected right to peaceably assemble, right? Or the Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable search and seizure. You don't think you're seeing how all the pieces connect and contradict one another? Well, what you're doing is you're trying to dance around this specific issue because you know that I'm right about the specific issue at hand, which is that um, the, saying that you can't peaceably assemble because of a pandemic is not constitutional. Or certainly it's not constitutional when one group can peaceably assemble and another can't. Like I say, build the government in your mind from the ground up? No. I believe in the Constitution. Do you understand? I don't come around and I say, well, what would be it? So this is another interesting thing about conservatives and liberals. See, liberals think that the way that you should approach government is you should say, this is what I think the perfect society would be like. And therefore, this is what the laws should be. That's the wrong approach. Because here's the thing. People are individuals. And what you think a perfect world is like is not what I think a perfect world is like, right? So instead, what have we done? We've created a document that respects everybody's individual rights. And then we've created a document off of that. So I, frankly, don't give a fuck what a utopian world would be because we don't live in that world. And I don't believe that that world will ever be possible unless Jesus himself is on the earth, right? No. So what do I care about? I care what some old dudes from a previous century said. That's exactly it. I care what some old dudes from a previous century said. That is what we based our government on, was what was written in a constitution. And they even provided a mechanism through which we can modify that constitution if we had a good reason. But you would have to have a, substantial enough support behind that amendment to change it. And there's a lot of things that people want to do that don't have that support. And so then they whine because the Constitution doesn't allow them to do that thing and they don't have the support to change the Constitution. And so essentially the constitutional form of government that we have prevents them from forcing the thing that they want to force on everybody else. And ergo, they would rather just get rid of the Constitution altogether. So what you're saying is you don't actually believe in the Constitution. I established that one. Understood. But we live in a constitutional republic, and until that constitutional republic has been overthrown by communists and Seth is dead, we still live in a constitutional republic. If the Constitution told you to jump off a cliff, would you do it? Sure. Sure. So for those of you from the outside watching this, when somebody makes a straw man argument, right? What is the correct? See, because what they want you to do when you say a straw man, when they come up with a straw man argument, is they're thinking in their head, if I make this ridiculous assertion, then they're going to get all defensive, and then I'll have the upper hand. So the easy way to win that argument is to just lean more into it. Yeah, if the Constitution told you to jump off a cliff, would you do it? But does the Constitution say to jump off a cliff? I don't think that that's anywhere in there. Wait. Okay, hold on. Here is the full text of the Constitution of the United States. Let's search your Control F, cliff. No, it's not in there. No. The Constitution doesn't say anything about jumping off a cliff. Sorry, color. But if the Constitution did, you would say they would have to follow it. Yes, I do. But it doesn't say that. So what's the point of your argument? That's like being a lemming or something? No, it's about having a society, right? There has to be some sort of agreed upon common basis for your society, right? Otherwise, you just can't have a society. And what we have decided to use in our country is a constitution. And you know what? Constitution works pretty darn well. Works pretty, is a pretty effective form of governance. So they've come back to the open, and I'm kind of thinking about it. So the Treasury's, by the way, the Treasury's pulled back pretty hard. Okay. Yeah, so I don't like that per se. Seth, we live in a society, right? I know, right? Okay. I didn't really like the way that it reacted, like right off of my entry, but I do think this could come through. So let's see. Okay, hold on. Focus on the task at hand. Don't distract me with hot talk of Constitution. Jesus didn't care what time that. Oh, okay. Okay, so just know there was a tepid buy on the open. They tested that high 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. They were not able to get above it. Now they are turning, and on the downside, look at how much more aggressive the volume is. I do not believe that this order flow that we're seeing down here is just guys that got in long on the open and bailing. This kind of looks like something else. This kind of looks like a bunch of people saying, okay, it didn't go up, so we're going to go short, because that means that the short seasonality is coming in. I think that there's probably more people than I expected trading the same kind of idea that I was, that today was actually likely to be a down day. You're saying Jesus didn't care what Rome thought. Yes, but what I'm saying is that if Jesus was here on the earth, that he would also believe in the Constitution. And if there was anything in the Constitution that he didn't believe in, he would recommend an amendment and we would change it. But I think if Jesus was here on the earth, he'd say, oh yeah, Constitution is a great way to do things. That's kind of what I'm saying. That's why I like an argument like, well, what if the Constitution said to jump off a cliff? That's kind of a silly argument because it doesn't say that. So really, for it to even be pertinent to the argument, you have to come up with something that the Constitution does says that shouldn't be so, and then we can argue about why it should or shouldn't be. But I doubt that you do that, because then you would, that's a difficult argument to win, right? Because you have hundreds of years of legal precedent in your favor if you believe in the Constitution, and you just have theorycraft to behind your argument if you don't believe it. Then why not the Constitution to say no ridiculous crap during a pandemic? If you can get enough people to support it. There is kind of an issue of if one right contradicts another right, but let's ignore that case. The first issue that you have to deal with is convincing people to support that amendment. Holy shnikes. That, my friends, was a little crazy of a move. Hold up. Where are we looking at here? Okay. So we're well past any kind of like daily levels that we can look at. So on the ES, yesterday's low was 54 and a quarter. Are they going to bust through Friday's low? Whew. Okay, well, I'm seeing some absorption right here, so I'm gonna... No, come back. There we go. Okay. Out. That might go further. I might be missing out on a great push down, right? But the way that my strategy works, I've got to get out when I see the meta order slowing down. So, but if they don't, then everyone can just die again. Yes. Because I believe that an explicit or not I would say explicit, an implicit consequence of a constitutional republic like the United States, where individual rights are respected above others, is that there will be negative consequences of that in some cases. For instance, in the case that the framers of the Constitution understood this too, and they said, but we don't exchange freedom for safety. So the whole thing is that there is a contradiction between freedom and safety, and they're saying that if you want everybody to be safe, that certain freedoms have to be given away. And in our country, in the United States, we acknowledge that, and we have explicitly made the choice to respect freedoms instead. And that means that you or I or anybody else could at any time potentially die or suffer the negative effects of somebody else exercising freedom. And we as a people in the United States accept that risk because we believe that the benefits of having freedom outweigh the risk of having harm done to you. Yeah. Correction could go as far as 30 areas. Well, so this area right here that they're stopping at right now is just above Friday's high. If they punch through Friday's low. If they punch through Friday's low, even if it gets everyone killed, even if it got everyone killed, sure. As Logan Paul said, it's all about the respect of our natural rights. Let's be fair though. This pandemic isn't going to get everybody killed. I think that that's kind of a really big part of the pandemic that nobody wants to acknowledge, because they're all afraid of saying the thing, which is that a lot of people are experiencing negative effects from the pandemic lockdowns and are essentially having their entire lives destroyed so that, another group of people don't die. But that other group of people are like 75 years old and are going to die soon anyways. And you'll kind of have to wonder, is it really fair? Is it really the correct trade-off there? Is to destroy everybody's lives and destroy future growth in favor of protecting the vulnerable few? Well, I don't know. I think in this case, maybe it actually might be the right case because so far, at least, the economy has been doing pretty okay. Like, you have to, let's let this play out 8 years and then we can go back and we can say, was it worth it or not? Yeah. Because if we don't have another economic collapse and we embark on another, period of 10 years of growth, well, there's a whole issue with the debt. I don't know how you solve that problem. But, in that case, I think I would say, hey, you know what? We took a short-term hit. And yeah, it hurt a lot of people's lives. But in the end, we all ended up better for it anyways. And we saved lives. And so it was a win-win. But I don't know if that's actually what's going to happen. You say Tesla's screwed there on that move down, HF? Of 75, that's 4 years below the average age in American. Is that 4? Is 79 the average age? Isn't just old people. By the vast majority of it is, though. Just to be clear. Oh my gosh, did you guys see this thing from Bill Maher? So I thought this was incredibly interesting. And it touches upon something that we've talked a lot about, but not recently, right? Yeah, I think it's killed more than 30-year-olds, and no, that's not true. So Bill Maher did a thing, and there was a survey by, I forget who it was that did the survey, but they asked Americans, like, what is the chance that if you catch COVID that you will be hospitalized? That was the question. What is the chance if you get COVID-19 that you will be hospitalized? They're going to break the law. Do it. Do it. Come on. We'll see. It'll be awfully fun if they break 54. Nope, not yet. Anyways, okay, what is the chances that if you catch coronavirus that you will have to go to the hospital, that you will be hospitalized? And the answer is like 3 to 4%, I believe, right? And 50% of Democrats said that the chance was 50%. Does that make sense? So like half of Democrats thought that if you catch coronavirus, you have a 50-50 chance of being hospitalized by it, when the probability is like 3 to 4%. And so Bill Maher's whole point was, why are Democrats so severely misinformed on the actual statistical properties of the coronavirus? And I was quite surprised by that too. I thought that everybody understood that the vast majority of people that catch it are fine. But now you're finding out that actually no, a lot of people seem to think that if you catch it, you have a 50% chance of dying. Well, yeah, if it was like that, then maybe I would understand some of this hysteria over, stopping coronavirus. 3 million people isn't a small number. It is a small number when you have a nation of 350 million people. Let's see here. Coronavirus deaths by age. Okay, so here we go. Age group. 30-year-olds. 5,880 30-year-olds have died from it. People that are 85 years old or over, 167,017 people have died. So 30, 40 times more. Isn't that you're making a straw man argument? I mean, like that is really a shitty argument, to be honest. Is that you're trying to have a good faith discussion with somebody about the trade-offs between safety and freedom, and you just straight up call people Nazis. Like, seriously, not that I hate you or anything like that, but just for in that particular instance, fuck you. Come on. Okay. People are going to die. Understand, Keller. You could lock the whole country down, and you could do all of this stuff, and we could have kept everybody in their homes and done the most dramatic thing possible to maximize life, or rather to minimize the number of people that will die. Okay? We could do everything that we could to minimize the number of people that would die. People would still die. Okay? It is unavoidable that a certain number of people will die. So, yes, to come in and you say, well, 3 million people dying is not, well, a certain number of people are going to die. Yeah. And you know how many people die? What is, let's see here. U.S. yearly deaths. Okay. Data for the U.S. Normally, it's about 3 million people. So, yeah, I am kind of saying that when you look at the larger statistics and so forth, that a certain number of people are going to die, and that 3 million people dying is not necessarily the end of the world. No, yeah, it is. But I did legit hear on the news that some more 30-year-olds were the first ones dying. Well, I mean, the CDC data doesn't back that up, but maybe there's more 30-year-olds died than they expected. Maybe they thought that that number was only going to be 3,000 and now it's 5,000. Okay. The Nazis had a lack of regard for human life, and so does Seth. I think that some people just don't understand numbers and statistics, and they don't know how to do a holistic analysis of a situation. You want to come in and you want to say that the number of lives lost is the only thing that matters, and if that number is over 1, then you have all done an evil and awful thing. And that is simply not the case. People are going to die. It's unavoidable. The only thing that we can do is we can try to minimize the number of deaths, and there are trade-offs, because you are trading off economic prosperity, freedom, and the general overall health and mental health of the country in exchange for the lives of a group of people that are predominantly over the age of 65 and are already retired and have lived out long lives. And yes, I am straight up saying that the lives of those people are not the only thing that matters. My sister died because of these lockdowns. She was 24 years old. Are you telling me that her life matters less than the lives of all of these people that have lived long lives and catch coronavirus and die? I say no. I think that this entire thing where we focus on this one thing because of a stupid political thing over one political guy is absolutely insane. Anybody coming in here doing the analysis on that kind of naive level is insane. And if you continue to allow these people to control the country, they will lead you to ruin. You just won't have a country anymore. Because honestly, you can't have a myopic analysis like that. And it plays into trading exactly, right? Where do we find edge? It's always going to be at the margins. We're finding something, an inefficiency that the market's not factoring in. That's why we have a market, because it's hard to find all these things and there's lots of nuances. And here we have this group of people, they want to come in and they want to control everybody's lives and not have any nuance. It is insane. It is wrong. And it's incredibly frustrating to come in and to say, hey, let's have a nuanced analysis of this situation. And then people come in and say, well, because you want to have nuance, you don't care about people and you want everybody to die and you're a Nazi. What a load of shit. PSS, thank you. I appreciate it, dude. They're all for nuance. Then do a holistic analysis of it. Here's what I would like to see. Here's what I never saw in this whole pandemic, and this is the thing that makes me mad. Is where was the analysis that came in and said, okay, if we do this policy, Here's what all of the effects are going to be. This is how many people will die. This is how much GDP is lost. This is how many people will die from this thing and this thing and this thing. This is how many people will die from coronavirus itself. This is how it will affect our global, all of the things, all of the impacts, and then a formula to sit down and say, this is how we determine the optimal answer. We don't just optimize on one thing, right? We have to optimize all of the all of the outcomes. We have to balance all of the outcomes out of this, and then make an informed decision based on what the consequences of that decision will be. And nobody ever did that. They explicitly didn't want to do that. When they were going through the lockdowns, they didn't want to say what the economic impact on people were going to be. You know? And I would say, like, how many lives lost? Like straight up, the number of people that have died to suicide alone, it's a lot. And when you look at, these are young people compared to people that are like in their 80s, how many years of lives did we actually save? Right? Because it seems to me that if you actually look at the number of years of lives saved, that we did not get a very good bang for our money. Seems to me. But I can't really say for sure because nobody has done that analysis. Maybe 30 years from now, somebody will turn around and look at it, and then they'll say, yeah, well, you know what? This thing would have been good and this thing would have been good, but like the full lockdowns was a bad idea. I don't know. We'll see. It would have done whatever appropriate to accommodate her, but you don't want to accommodate anybody else's lives? Well, I want to have a holistic analysis and make a decision based off of what the impact on everybody is going to be to make a good decision for everybody. And I'm just suggesting that the best decision for everybody might not have been a full lockdown, or certainly not for as long as they did, right? So I tell you, for one thing, for starters, I wouldn't have done a national lockdown. I think that Donald Trump doing that, it was a big mistake. I think that they should have come out and they should have said, okay, if you have this many cases, then in order to flatten the curve, then you need to shut down for this amount of time. And these are the metrics that you need to look at and follow. And those would just be the guidelines that everyone would have to follow. They did kind of put guidelines in, but then it was like the administration immediately started ignoring their own guidelines. And so that kind of screwed everything up. But then what would have happened is some states would have shut down because they were experiencing the pandemic at that time, like New York. Other states would not have shut down yet because they didn't have the coronavirus yet. And then they could have started building up natural immunity faster. Whereas instead, in some of these areas, it seems that they stayed locked down for so long that they never built any kind of immunity at all. And that I suspect areas like Michigan are getting hit so hard right now. Whereas other places like Utah, it's like they're practically all ready to herd immunity. National lockdown is right. But my whole point is that probably every state needed to shut down, but they didn't all need to shut down at the same time. Tom Power says, well, in Ireland, we have been in full lockdown bar maybe 2 months since early last summer. Yeah. Now, Tom, do you think that it was worth it? Do you have any the information? Are they giving information over there that suggests that it was worth it? Because I feel like if I was in Europe right now, I would be looking over at the United States and I would be like, they didn't lock down as hard. They didn't lock down for as long as we did. And they are now getting out of it sooner than us. And the only reason that their numbers were really low was because of that one mistake that was made at the beginning from the northeastern governors. So their response wasn't actually that bad. I would be questioning the whole response that my own country had, you know? New Zealand thinks it was worth it. Well, so maybe for New Zealand it was. I don't know. The thing with New Zealand, this is actually a really interesting case to talk about in this particular kind of analysis, right? Because New Zealand, were there consequences from being shut down? Oh, for sure. I mean, the tourism industry, which is basically their whole economy, not their whole economy, it was a pretty good portion of their economy as tourism, was shot.
Block by.
But wouldn't that have happened anyways? Wouldn't that have happened anyways? So, and them being a small island and everything, does locking everything down make sense? I think maybe it does. It's hard to say for sure. I'm sure that people will do a more analysis of it in the future, but you got what I'm saying? Maybe for that country it does, but just because it worked for that country in that specific circumstances, because they're an island and they can like isolate themselves from everybody, and the whole world is going to shit anyways, so they're not really hurting themselves all that much by locking down. But then that doesn't mean that it makes sense for everybody else. China is certainly all too ready to be oppressive, but in a purely scientific way. They apparently had like 12 cases yesterday and pretty much stopped the virus. Yeah, and in China, people can come and take you out of your house and throw you in prison for literally any reason. For simply saying that I don't like the government, or I don't like who is in charge, or I don't like any, right? And they're able to do all of those things because you literally have no rights in China. And if you want to live in a world like that where you have zero rights, but at least they'll always do the thing that protects you from a virus every time, then by all means move to China. It's not like I'm just saying I think that people should live in a place with a government that most closely matches their ideals. And it sounds to me like well, maybe you think that China takes it too far. Sounds to me like you would be better off in like Germany. Guy says, I think South Korea made it best they just tracked cases by its origin and set down local lockdowns in places with virus outbreaks began. Not sure if America would accept such measures as it has geolocation. Okay, so excellent point, Kyle. Having the ability to do contact tracing and a very high amount of testing capacity from day one makes a huge difference. And in Korea, they have weathered things quite well because they had previous epidemics, and so they were already prepared. They had more of the materials that they needed for the testing, and they had a really effective structure set up to do the contact tracing. Here in the United States, when they got to the point where they could even do the contact tracing, it didn't do squat. It was like it was already too far gone. You know what I mean? That said, I don't think that everything is hunky-dory in Korea either, because they were still having breakouts. So this is another issue, is this thing where you stay locked down until the vaccine is available. Nobody's gotten to that point where you have herd immunity from the vaccine yet. So that's still a little unproven. So I would wait. We'll see how they, that's another one. It seems to me like that is something that really, really helps. But let's wait and make a final conclusion until everything is done. But with the data that we have so far, it does look like they did well, yes. The UK is getting very close to herd immunity, true. But the UK also had a lot of cases. Trump dismantled Obama's pandemic awareness program or whatever. Yeah, well, there was bad decisions made by all of 4 of the last presidents that contributed to this, actually. So, like, one of the things that happened was that, a lot of supplies were used during the West Nile virus and the swine flu and things like that. And then Obama didn't replenish the supplies. And then Donald Trump came in, and with his budget, they did defund some government agencies. But I think when you really look at it, what you'll discover is that like we were already kind of hosed anyways, and that Donald Trump, I wouldn't say that they helped, but it certainly, it was just as bad as it was going to be anyways. I remember that one at the very beginning. It's kind of funny how the stories that I see, like there's a thing that I have such a hard time dealing with. Um, it, Understanding the limits of other people's knowledge, like for us here on trading, I think that we tend to be the kind of person that reads the news a lot and remembers what's going on. But the average person, they don't catch all of those stories. Most people never heard those stories, or if they heard it, they just heard like the headline, and they didn't get to hear, okay, well, here's all of the decisions that have been made over the past 20 years that contributed to this. And you find out that, oh, well, Donald Trump reducing funding for certain government agency didn't really have a huge effect on anything. You know what I mean? And so here, I like remember when that story was out, but then it's like everybody even forgot that was even an argument. And then half of the people never even heard it in the first place, And how do you deal with those sorts of issues in trading? It's super hard. It's super hard. I've been discussing these things with my ex since, well, yeah, so go and live in a country where where the government can take your rights away for your own safety at any moment. And then at some point, they will take away your rights. They'll take away something that you care about, and then we'll see if you still like it. If you still think that giving up all rights in favor of safety is really a good idea. I tell you what, because I understand the argument that you're making. You're saying we should give some things up in order to be safe. It's been the argument about government since the beginning of time. And I'm just saying, yeah, there's some benefits to it, but there's some negatives to it too. And I think that a lot of those that really think about that, or that really think that way, just have never run into an issue where they haven't had their rights. And once they get into that situation, they'll change their minds on that whole thing. And they'll say, I will keep my rights no matter what, because I just don't trust the government. I specifically made the case that if there was ever a pandemic and the Republican president things would blow up, and that's exactly what happened. Well, no, like, you understand, that is just outright false. It would have blown up if Hillary Clinton was president, right? Like, it is this idea out there that something that Donald Trump could have done would have stopped it. Probably not. In fact, if Hillary was president, it probably would have spread faster initially. Is this a trading channel? That's a good question, Icarus. Let me show you something. Let me show you something. What is the name of this channel? I'm being such an asshole right now. Just ignore me. I'm just having fun. I know that what I'm about to say is like an asshole, but see what this channel is called? It's called Speculators App. So the subject of this channel is me. And what Seth thinks. And yeah, I like to talk about those sorts of things because I factor it into my trading. Yeah. So I remember back when the pandemic was a great example of this was when the pandemic was really, really going, and we were talking about all of this stuff, and I was saying, well, you know what? It looks like that the market doesn't understand how the number of cases should really affect everything. And so they're coming in and they see a high number of cases on Friday. They don't understand that it's cyclical and that that number is high, but it's going to be lower on Tuesday. And so they're overreacting to it, and we should buy the dip. And I can look at all of these things because I follow the pandemic, and yeah, I have an opinion. Like, this is the thing, is you can't do all of this analysis and know all of this stuff and not have an opinion on it, right? So I think that there's this idea that here when I hear you say that, correct me if I'm wrong. I hope you're still there, Chris, because I want to know what your answer is. It sounds to me like what you think I should be only talking about is there's a head and shoulders pattern here, and this bar compared to this bar, and we're above the moving average. This is how much that's what you think that talking about trading is. Am I wrong? Oh, sorry. Somebody was talking about Monero. What were you saying about Monero? I think that Monero is, well, let's see where they're at. I don't want to say something dumb, because I don't even know where they're at. Okay, so they're quite a ways down there, aren't they? I think that when you look at how established Monero is and everything else involved, that Monero is potentially undervalued relative to the rest of the market. The problem is that the whole cryptocurrency market is overvalued, but probably compared to other coins, I think that you could make a good argument that Monero is undervalued because it provides security, right? Oh, really? They can come to Brazil. We have an amendment here that states you're granted the right to property, but it's subject to the social function of the property. So whenever your property doesn't meet that quote unquote social function, the state can. That is awful. It will have its run when people want to hide their gains from the IRS. Yeah, or it'll be hit the hardest when the government starts cracking down on cryptocurrencies. But I think you have a solid investment thesis there, though. For sure. What do you think about technical analysis? Do you apply or use it all? So I use a lot of technical analysis, actually. But the thing that you need to understand about technical analysis is that it is not predictive at all. Which is to say that technical analysis ability to predict, forecast the future direction or magnitude of a move is extremely limited. So where does technical analysis become useful then? Well, technical analysis can become useful because it can kind of tell you, like, how much risk are you taking on? How much risk would it make sense to take on at this time? What is just like the market actually doing, right? But from everything that I have looked at, if you do not have a predictive edge, that is, you know something that has a probability of increasing, that has a probability of predicting which way the market is going to go and where it is going, not like how the magnitude of it, but specifically where it's going to go to. That if you do not have such an edge, that your expectancy is zero. That you will lose your money one way or another if you do not have an edge like that. So if you cannot get that edge from technical analysis, then that suggests that the basis for all of my trades is something other than technical analysis, doesn't it? So I'm not going to say that technical analysis is useless, but the basis of your trading should be something else. Usually for me, it's news. So in this case, I went short. I made 50 off of that, although it was a sim. Did take a little bit of adverse excursion too, so I didn't really like my spot. But hey, the stop held, and I decided to extend it and took a little bit, and I actually got out right at the bottom too. I really played that really well. So how did I do that? Well, I knew that the seasonality suggests that in the later half of April that we tend to go down. I knew that the market was really frothy, and a lot of analysts were suggesting that we would have need for a technical pullback. I knew that a lot of gamma expired Friday, and that tends to have a negative effect on stocks in the following week. So I was kind of stocking the short from the get-go. And then from there, I kind of know based off of the technicals, what my risk is and everything, so that I can pick a favorable spot. And that's how I took that trade. There's a meme of two atheists or two people arguing over what a puzzle is, and the person says it's a duck and the other says it's a card. And if the card guy keeps insisting that the picture can't be ascertained until the very last piece is in place, meanwhile the other guy is sitting there shaking his head because it's just one piece missing and it's clearly a duck. Yeah, I don't know if in the case of the pandemic, we certainly are not to that spot, right? I always bring that up just because so many people said at the very beginning, oh yeah, the United States, oh, somehow that applies to technical analysis. Oh, well, I was going to say, early on, everybody said, oh, the United States response has been so awful. And they come in and they would cite Donald Trump. And they say, because of Donald Trump, not as many people are wearing masks. They're not staying as locked down as much, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I always said, well, wait until the pandemic is over. And the further along that we get into this, the more we start to realize that, all of those things that we thought really mattered at the beginning weren't really the things that are going to be the biggest determinants of how effective your pandemic response was, right? The most important thing, from what I can tell, is how well you protect the vulnerable citizens, the people that are in their 70s and 80s. And in New York and New Jersey, they did not do that. So the U.S. has a high death rate because of that. Otherwise, it's not so bad. But then, as we've gotten further along, what are we finding out matters more? How many vaccines you were able to get. And Donald Trump made sure that the United States was fully stocked on the vaccines and was the best at that. Well, there you go. I was saying, hey, I caught the bottom of that and it came out, but look, they just went and took another new low. This could just go all day, man. Because of approximations and what it takes to feel like you have a real grasp of where stock will go. Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing with technical analysis, is that technical analysis will always work just enough to fool you, right? You'll have a time period where it seems like it works. It will always be something that makes people think, oh yeah, this is really great. And then once you really start getting into it and you start risking capital, it will just seemingly stop working and take all your money. So while I think technical indicators and stuff inherently fail in certain scenarios, I would argue that if you have enough indicators, you could really get a real sense of what is going on, just like that duck picture that is missing one piece. I think it's so much more. So here's what I think it is I think that it's like you're in a snowstorm, and there's one snowflake in that snowstorm that actually really matters. How are you going to determine which one it is? And what that snowflake looks like is different in every snowstorm. You know what I mean? So yeah, there could be some technical thing that you're looking for that in that particular situation is going to be the one that you need to look at. But there's too many scenarios you could never possibly know. And that's why when you look at any one individual signal, you will find situations where it works, but then in the larger scheme of things, the market is always arbitraged away, right? There's simply too much noise for us to empirically determine those things that actually matter from inspecting the data. And that's really, truly, in the end, I think the real, the linchpin of why technical analysis is so problematic is because technical analysis is primarily trying to find an edge simply by examining the data, and there is too much noise for that to be effective. So it's better to come up with a fundamental explanation for why that matters, a fundamental explanation for how they read things, right? And then find technicals that support that, so that you're looking at something that you have some larger empirical reason to believe that it could be effective, right? Did that make sense? I don't know if that was a very good explanation. So, like, for instance, we know from the way that the limit order book works that it creates a square root impact from large meta orders being executed. Ergo, we can search the market for signs of those meta orders, and we can look for the patterns that the square root impact of a meta order suggests should exist, and we can use those as guides, right? Instead of looking at every technical indicator out there and finding which one seems to work the best. And you know what I mean? It works and it doesn't work. Yeah. Schrodinger's technical indicator. Yeah. What is, there's like a dozen, there's 1,000 different technical indicators, and which one is it going to work best in that situation is going to be different every time. But of course, a technical analyst doesn't think of it that way, right? Technical analyst thinks of it as, if I am just consistent with this setup for long enough, the long-term expectancy of this strategy will win out in the end. And what I'm suggesting is that over a long enough time frame, the expectancy will always come out to break even, because the market arbitrages out such as edges. And so certainly you're not going to find such an edge with an indicator that is like well-known and popular. So this whole thing of people, I put it on my, I said this on TikTok, and I was like, why didn't I think of this before? I thought it was such a good analogy, man. You know how they say that during a gold rush, that some of the people that make the most money are the people selling shovels? Well, look, I do sell a shovel. I'm not going to say that it's like the only shovel that you need, and that if you just trade with my shovel that you're guaranteed to make money, right? No. Shovel is just a tool that allows you to do things, right? So I can give you a shovel. I can show you how to dig. I can even give you some pointers on how to find a good spot to dig, right? Probably you don't want to dig too close to other people. You want to look for areas that have iron, and here are some signs that there might be gold in that particular area, right? I'm not going to show you where I dig. That's where I get gold. I don't want any competition. I'm not going to show you where I dig. But what I see is everybody on Reddit and on the internet are basically talking about how they want to go and dig in this same hole. There's like this quarry down the road, and it's popular, and everybody's over there in that one. And it's kind of like, well, how are you going to find gold there? Like, if there was any gold, they've already dug it up. Eggers, how do you calculate market maker's hedged book index ARB spot to futures buy sell active and buy sell thresholds? Okay, so I'm not 100% sure what you're asking here, but one of the indicators that I have that you can get from speculatorseth.com, free 2-week trial, and then afterwards you have to be a member of the channel, will look at the actual orders try to determine whether they're buy or sell orders, and then does some gaming out of those situations to determine where the buyers and sellers are long and short from. And it, in some situations, tends to be very effective at predicting where things are going to really turn. Like, like if they get past this level, then things get really bad. And conversely, an area where like once they get past this level, you start to have an increased chance of it mean reverting. That's not the complete strategy, because like say it goes past that stop line, sometimes it can keep going, and like how do you set like a stop and target and everything like that, right? But it is a really good guide, right? Another thing that you're talking about though is like an index spot to futures. So I am getting more and more into that you should try and arbitrage away, and that you should try and find like arbitrage inefficiencies. And there's lots of different ways that you can do that. But this is, again, one of the reasons why I say that talking about markets and what's going on in the world is really important. So like here in the treasuries, it's really interesting. Initially, we had a really solid move down in the treasuries, just kind of seemingly out of nowhere. But then as soon as the equity indexes started to show some signs of instability, the treasuries went right back up, right? And I don't know why in this case they're doing it, other than that the E-mini was going down. But if we understand what those correlations are, we can identify some situations where we're going to be like, these two assets are going to be correlated. Normally they aren't, but today they're going to be correlated. And then I can try and arbitrage out the correlation on that one specific thing. Makes sense? So like a discretionary arbitrage where you're going to be able to identify inefficiencies in the market that it's really hard to program a robot to see, because it's going to be such a specific situation, right? And that's kind of what I look for, especially when I'm trading over here in the treasury. I never got filled though. Isn't that crazy? I was trying to buy O2 and they didn't fill me, and then like I thought, oh, okay, like maybe they'll come down and then maybe I'll have an opportunity to do it, but they never did it, did they? It just went like right back up. Okay, whatever. No trade in the treasury today then, I guess. Because here I'm going to end here in a minute. Well, I really went off. We really probably did get a little bit too far away from the market, so we're talking about how to blah, 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 about the Constitution and everything. But still, I enjoyed it. Stream's still a little bit light, but you know what? I think it'll be like that for a while. That's okay. That's what makes a good drummer, a good writer, a good chef, or anything really. The people who do those little things that blind theory can't account for, yeah. It's just like there's an infinite array of possibilities, and there are going to be things that have never happened before, and the robot won't know what to do. But because you understand the fundamentals, you'll see this situation and go, oh, well, okay. The instrument should do this. Better you understand the instrument, better your ability to do that. That's why we should understand all of these things. And like one of the issues is like, okay, so does talking about how freedom versus safety matters, is that really a thing? Well, I think it is, because there's going to be a situation sometime in the future that we cannot possibly fathom or explain, where how much you know about that particular subject may give you an edge in being able to predict what's going to happen in a certain situation. Okay, Octavius, did you look at the Edge Pro X from Edge Clear? I did. I didn't have enough information for me to really know what it was. It kind of looked like Quant Tower to me, so I'm not sure. It kind of looked like Quant Tower to me, though. Like the screenshots looked like it was a skinned version of Quant Tower. And I'm saying that primarily because they're like their Vista chart looks like the Quant Tower one. So that's why I'm saying that. So I'm kind of on the fence. I would say like Quant Tower is not an awful platform or anything, but it's still awfully immature. Although a lot of the things that we see in Edge Pro X, it looks like the stuff that they added to their versions of Quant Tower was quite nice and very much beyond what I think some other people had tried doing with it. So that's cool. Okay, well, I guess we already got a title for the video today, Weekend Crypto Massacre. Weekend Crypto Massacre and freedom versus safety debate. That's what I'll put in the video description. Okay, guys, if you haven't checked out my TikTok, I post stuff on TikTok that you might enjoy. At Speculator Seth, at Real Stock Market Steve will be. So if you really just haven't had enough of me today. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow. And in the meantime, stay profitable, friends.